today's video is how to schedule a non-party deposition. The most common scenario that you're going to face is a non-party deposition of an employee of a hospital. So in our cases involving hospitals, there are usually a bunch of nurses who were involved in patient care that we will want to depose. So there's 5 simple steps in scheduling these depositions. Step number 1, you would reach out to the attorney who represents the hospital to check on the employment status of the nurse or employee. You want to know, is this person still employed by the hospital or have they left the employment of the hospital? Because if they're still working there, then the hospital will almost certainly produce them as a witness. If they're no longer employed by the hospital, then there's a good chance the hospital will not be able to produce them for a deposition. However, that's not always the case. You may ask the hospital's attorney, even if the person is no longer employed by the hospital, are you able to produce that person for a deposition? Sometimes they'll say yes, we'll make that happen. Now, let's say that they do not work at the hospital. The employee has left the hospital, and that happens quite often. The next thing you do is contact the attorney for the hospital and ask them for the last known whereabouts of the employee. That means, what was their address? Do they have any information? Because we need to find them. Let's say that the hospital does not provide any information about the last known whereabouts of this person. Then you would go to our private investigator and you would ask them to find the whereabouts. Where do they live? What city and state do they live in? Any information you can get, you'd go to our private investigator. Step number 2, you found the person. Either the attorney for the hospital has given you their last known address, or you found where they live through our private investigator. Step number 2 is if they are not a party to the lawsuit, meaning they are not a defendant, you serve them with a subpoena. When we serve them with a subpoena, this would be for a virtual deposition. So we wouldn't actually be physically going to where they live or work. We'd do it through Zoom, just like this, and we'd be deposing them. Really important. The subpoena is something that the attorney prepares and it gets hand delivered to the non-party witness. So you take the subpoena, you would send it to a process server, and they would serve it on the non-party witness. And that subpoena would direct them to appear on a certain date and time for a deposition. Really important. The defense attorneys all need to be on notice of the subpoena. What does that mean? When you send a subpoena out for service to a process server, you have to email a copy of the subpoena on all defense counsel. They need to be aware that we've subpoenaed a non-party witness. Step number 3, you're going to notify defense that you have a date for the deposition. Let's just say it's March 10th of this year. You would notify the defense by email. We have scheduled the deposition of the following non-party witness on March 10th at 10 a.m. Virtual Zoom. We will send you a link to attend. So all defense counsel have to be notified of this. Now, really important point, you don't necessarily need to coordinate or get their consent to the date for the non-party deposition. You just have to notify them of when it will be held, what time, the date. If they say, oh, that date doesn't work for us, we're not available that date, well, too bad. In a very nice way, you'd say, well, I'm sorry, but we're gonna proceed anyway. Step number 4, you always need to confirm and schedule a stenographer to type down all the questions and answers, also known as a court reporter, but also a videographer. In our cases, we videotape all depositions. So you want to contact a court reporter and a videographer for purposes of memorializing the non-party deposition. That's really important. Step number 5, real simple, is at least 3 days before the non-party deposition, you want to contact the non-party. If they have an attorney, you'd contact their attorney. If they don't have an attorney, you'd contact the non-party witness and you would ask them to confirm that they will be present on the date and time of the deposition. You will confirm that they have the link to attend the deposition virtually. You also need to make sure that all defense counsel have the link to attend the deposition. So those are the basic 5 steps of scheduling a non-party deposition. It's very common. If you like this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Really appreciate that. If you comment, I'll respond, and I will see you next time.